join me.
We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Reflection and worship, a spirit of reminding ourselves of what we most value, of how we shape worth from the best of our lives. This is a story adapted from a meditation, or this is a meditation, and it's adapted from the Buddhist tradition. Once upon a time, a thief snuck into the room of a sleeping monk. As the burglar rummaged about, the monk awoke. The startled thief ran into the snowy streets with the monk racing after him. "Please stop," the monk called. And the man finally did, realizing that his pursuer was no threat. "You need this," the monk gasped, handing the thief his own coat. "What do you mean?" the burglar asked. "I saw that you dashed from my room into the cold without so much as a winter wrap, and I realized that I had both a woolen blanket and a coat." "I don't understand," the man said. "It is simple. You have nothing at all to keep you warm," the monk answered. "When we are not alienated, when love draws us into the suffering of others, then we see our happiness entwined in their well-being. Generosity is neither foolish nor heroic. It is but the simplest and most obvious choice. May we remember that hope can spring even from the coldest, the darkest, the most unexpected times." So I have a story today, but don't worry, I shortened the sermon. There are many stories you might have heard, many stories where women have done something really bad, and those actions cause bad things in the world. You might know about Eve. Eve listened to the serpent and ate the forbidden fruit, and she got Adam to eat it too. And because of this, it is said, God threw them both out of the Garden of Eden. It has been trial and suffering ever since. Maybe you've heard of the Zuni woman who wanted to be a great hunter instead of getting married. She was good at hunting, and that attracted the attention of a terrible monster who ate everything she had, including her boots and her coat and her dress. As the monster used a pickaxe to attack the cave she'd been in, two gods had to come and rescue her. And she decided to get married and let her husband hunt for her from now on. There are a lot of stories about how women and girls do and say things, and they need to be put under control. Lately, we've been hearing a lot of stories like that. Except that now, all the people are beginning to listen to the women and to ask if their actions are really proper. Here's another story you might be familiar with. The story of Pandora and the box she was given by the god Zeus as a wedding present. But this story ends a little differently. In ancient Greece, there were two brothers named, I can't get it. Epimetheus, that's wrong, and Prometheus, that's right. They upset the gods and annoyed the most powerful god of all, Zeus. The last straw for Zeus was when Prometheus stole sacred fire from the gods. He was furious, and he decided that humans had to be punished once and for all for the lack of respect. Zeus came up with a very cunning plan to punish the two brothers. He created a woman from clay. The goddess Athena then breathed life into the clay. Aphrodite made her very beautiful, and Hermes taught her how to be both charming and deceitful. Zeus called her Pandora and sent her as a gift to the brother's name I can't pronounce. And now, Prometheus, he had warned his brother not to accept any gifts, but this brother was completely charmed by the woman and thought Pandora was so beautiful that she could never cause any harm, so he agreed to marry her. Zeus, pleased that his trap was working, gave Pandora a wedding gift of a beautiful box. There was, however, one very, very important condition. She must never open the box. Well, you know how that goes. She was very curious about the contents of the box, and though she promised she would never open it, still, all she could think was, what could be in the box? She could not understand why someone would send her a box if she was not to see what was in it. It made no sense to her at all, and she could think of nothing else but opening that box and unlocking its secrets. And that is just what Zeus planned. Finally, Pandora could stand it no longer. When she knew her husband was out of sight, she crept up to the box, took the huge key off the high shelf, fitted it carefully into the lock, and turned it. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and slowly lifted the lid.
Building suspense.
But there was no gleam of gold or treasure. Thank you for that. There was no shining bracelets and not one beautiful dress. The look of excitement on her face quickly turned to one of disappointment and then horror. For Zeus had half the box full of all the terrible evils he could think of. Out of the box poured disease and poverty. Out came misery, out came death, out came sadness, all shaped like big stinging wasps. Out of the box came deportation and lost health insurance coverage. Out of the box came deficit spending and entitlement cuts. Out of the box came more military equipment and border walls. The wasps of misery and trauma stung poor Pandora over and over again, and she slammed the lid shut as she cried in pain. But Pandora could hear a voice calling her from the box, pleading with her to be let out. And she decided that nothing inside the box could be worse than the horrors that had already been released. So she opened the lid once more. All that remained in the box was hope. It fluttered like a tiny and beautiful dragonfly, touching the wounds created by the pain-loving wasps and healing them. Even though Pandora had released a nightmare of suffering upon the world, she had also allowed hope to follow. Some people might call hope just another misery, trying to make you feel better in a world that seems to be getting worse and worse all the time. A misery because hope doesn't seem to improve the sorrowful things necessarily. It is true, hope does not fix the trauma of reality. It doesn't remove sexual harassment or police brutality or hunger or homelessness or death. But hope is a balm, a salve, a solace to the aching of our hearts and spirits. Hope is a glimmer in the darkness, a light drawing us together so that we can be a light for each other, so that we can be a balm and a salve and a glimmer of compassion and concern in the midst of misery and sorrow. May we be this light of hope for each other, now and always, listening, comforting, sustaining, a real community of resilience and love and strength. May we be a beacon of hope in a hurting world. So we had a time of reflection, meditation, and prayer with these words adapted from Paul Beadle. spirit of life and love, spirit of justice and peace. Day in, day out, we confront wearying tasks, burdens we lift again, worn paths we wear some more. Day in, day out, await want and means worn thin and fatigue. Day in and day out, await pain and grief, coldness of heart, bitter and weary days where we know desolation. How can we call forth hope when our hearts are buried, sunken down? How do we dig out? How do we rise up? What healing touch do we long for? What balm might we take and share? Come what may, O Spirit of life, may we keep a ray of light for our inward path, a living water in the depths of us, a cleansing breath at our core. May we keep them for ourselves and to share. May we call forth from each other vitality and tenacity. May love rest in us. May justice live through us. May we have the touch to call others back to life and love, to justice and peace. May our hearts sing the songs calling to us hope, even when it seems hardest. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit-giving power, so may it be, and amen. Let's share the silence. In the tale of Pandora, hope is a fragile little dragonfly left behind when all the cruel, waspish miseries of the world have been set loose. This delicate and breakable creature is all that stands between the hurting world and the stings of greed, viciousness, authoritarianism, and more. What an odd and disconcerting idea. What can it mean that the magnitude of sin and despair could be countered by a small flutter of hope? How can a voice still and small carry us through all the metaphorical and the real tempests of life? 19th century American poet Emily Dickinson provided another description of hope, one that repeats the fragility of Pandora's dragonfly, yet offers something else as well. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words, and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, and yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. Deep within us, hope resides like a small bird. Hope sings inarticulately in a language beyond words. Hope sings ceaselessly in our souls like that still and small voice. In gale and storm, on cold lands and foreign seas, hope keeps us warm. And more, hope asks nothing of us. When despair is at its most extreme, hope asks not a crumb. The very food of birds, a crumb, is rejected at a time when hope's presence is most needed. Hope does not have to be fed. Hope does not have to be nurtured. Hope is intrinsic and ever-present, even if quiet and small, winged and scaly or feathered. Hope conceived as fragile dragonflies and birds, winged creatures that could fly away but don't. Hope that remains in the midst of the misery and without asking anything of us. Hope simply is. It just is. It just is part of our beingness. I believe this, and I need to believe this, because I confess that I have often allowed the dreadful realities of our world to drown out a song of hope in my spirit. Lately, it has been hard to turn on the radio, switch on the news, scroll through my Facebook feed. Hard to do any of that and also allow the tender but persistent presence of hope to gently bat aside the misogyny, racism, and xenophobia that daily assault my spirit. Perhaps you have felt this too. So what is it that can draw hope into action, healing the stings and sorrows of life, making it possible to go on when all is just too much, too ugly, too hopeless? It can be the most unlikely things that draw us back to hope, that remind us of hope's presence always inside of us, asking nothing of us but that we hear its voice singing. Reactivating the hope that Dickinson tells us is always within us. Drawing on the hope that provides a balm to the injuries of living. We all need inspiration to get there. We all need inspiring. We all need to be sparked by something that reminds us to breathe, to let the air fill our lungs so that oxygen might flood our blood cells and give our brains what we need in order to see things in a new way, a healing way, a hopeful way. Inspiration comes in many forms, myths and poems, stories of all varieties, creating art, visual and musical, or simply spending time in the presence of beauty. Walking in the woods or working in the soil. These are all good ways to be inspired. Inspiration can come from the strangest sources. I read an article the other day about dinosaurs. 65 million years ago, the dinosaurs went extinct, and we are trying to figure that out even now. Hope springs eternal that we'll understand. 65 million years ago, most of the dinosaurs went extinct, but not all of them. Not the ones that eventually evolved into birds. Out at the University of Southern California, may they still be doing this work, molecular biologists have been doing some interesting experiments to figure out how scaly dinosaurs evolved into feathery flying birds. These scientists have been placing chicken feather genes into alligator eggs, and lo and behold, some of the baby alligator scales have sprouted feathers. Now that may sound like a Frankenstein or a Jurassic Park nightmare to some of you, but reimagining flying lizards is truly remarkable. Not only does such scientific work push the frontiers of human knowledge, but it puts me to mind of dragons, those flying lizards of mythological lore. In Chinese culture, dragons are associated with control over the environment, with regulating the environment and keeping things right in the world. It may feel like a stretch to get from flying lizards to Dickinson's hope perched in the soul, a little bird unabashed by gale or storm of any ferocity, regulating the world perhaps. A dragon and hope as a bird. That's a stretch, I know. But it brings me to a movie that I turn to when I need to breathe and recall the hope intrinsic in me. It's a movie with dragons, the fire-breathing kind. I wish it were a pretty movie I was going to describe, but it's not. It's dark, a grim, a monstrous movie. It's the kind of movie I like. The movie, my favorite Christmas movie is Die Hard. The movie is Reign of Fire. Have you ever seen it? With Christian Bale and Gerard Butler and Matthew McConaughey, in case you want to go look it up. And dragons are dominating the earth with devastation and terror. It's a kind of movie movie that looks all too much like the worst of what human beings can wrought on our earth and in our human relations. It is full of the evils of hatred and misery that seem to reside in our souls and spirits and minds as easily, maybe more easily, than hope exists there. In this movie, humans dig too deeply into the earth and disturb the hibernating dragons that have been present all along, but contained away from our more vulnerable lives. Once unleashed, the dragons burn and devour whatever they can, including most of the animals and human beings. The earth is scorched, burned, and smoldering, looking too much like California these days. And you're probably wondering now why the MFC passed me, right? Small pockets of people have managed to survive, and the subjects of this film have kept hope alive in a medieval castle in northern England. They are clever and resourceful, retrofitting the old stony heap with wind turbines and water pipes. They keep radio communication open somehow in search of other people, and they keep a watchful eye on the skies, using a falcon to determine whether a dragon is nearby or not. They plant tenacious gardens. Now, this is a Hollywood movie, and there are lots of special effects and explosions and drama, so you might expect that at the box office. But that is not what I find inspiring about this film. It's what the characters do to remain hopeful when hungry and cold and afraid. It's what they do when reality looks utterly bleak, like it can never improve, like there is nothing you can do but gobble up the last of the food supplies and then just give up. When the movie is not focused on dragons and the devastation they represent, the movie is focused on children. It is focused on keeping them safe, hiding them deep below the castle when the dragons come calling. It focused on transmitting culture in the form of stories nearly lost in the hellfire of destruction. It focused on teaching children to respect themselves and each other, that they are all valuable and important, that they need to hold sacred and protect each other. The adults sacrifice within a community that supports the overall good of the many through compassion for the most vulnerable and so the most valuable. Hope in this movie, Reign of Fire, comes in the form of preserving what is best about humans when the conditions for life are at their utter worst. When it is literally the darkest of days, this is precisely the time, the best time, maybe the only time to foster and cultivate hope, to keep that fluttering, gleaming, still small voice right in the present moment of our lives. When the world appears to be crashing down on us, crushing the lives and spirits of more and more of us, that is the time to breathe together, to breathe and keep hope visible and audible and active in our lives. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to our children, all of our children, to keep hope alive in this world, no matter how it burns and stings. In the tale of Pandora, one little hope, fluttering like a dragonfly, is all that is needed to heal the wounds of sorrow and desolation of the entire world. One little glimmer, one little quivering voice is all that is needed to keep it all going. Morning breaks every day, each day new. Hope can spring in each turn around the sun as long as we live. Can you allow the hope within you to light your way in dark times? Hope, the only antidote to the miseries afflicting our world. Can you promise, my friends, to open yourself to hope, to allow hope to flutter and fly, to glimmer and shine from you and out into the aching world? Can you help each other? Be the hope for each other. Can you promise this, friends, today and every day, as you remember that you are loved, you are worthy, you are welcome, and you are needed? May you feel it so. So let's touch elbows or hold hands, depending on what you like.
Although the flame of the chalice is about to go out, may the light it has provided today carry you forward with joy and hope. We extinguish this flame,
but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Hope glimmers and calls inside you. Share that hope with each other. Amen.
Amen.
Join us for worship every Sunday at 10 a.m. at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua, a welcoming congregation. We are located at 3024 Cooley Road, 4 miles west of South Main Street, Canandaigua, just north of the intersection with Routes 5 and 20. Look for the blue signs just before the turn. Your comments about this program or questions about the church are welcome at 585-396-1370 or at our website, www.canandaiguauu.org. Producer and editor, Daniel Brigham.